Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Struggling Hunters. We got some exciting stuff to talk about tonight. A lot of stuff happening. We got hunts going on in Utah, hunts going on in Colorado. So pretty good time. Uh, as always, just want to start it out by thanking everybody for giving us a chance, listening to the podcast, and leaving comments, leaving likes. It's much appreciated. Way cool. Um, really enjoying just getting the feedback. Kind of makes our week every time. Kind of the same old spill, but I really enjoy it. It's episode 73, so they're stacking up. They're stacking up big time. Yeah, it's exciting, man. I don't know, we're really growing. We're getting somewhere with this podcast, and it's becoming it's always been fun, but I feel us getting better and better and kind of understanding who we are as a podcast, and everything's just kind of coming around. So anyways, with that said, and with the introductions out of the way, Joe, I know you were up hunting.
Yeah, I took off, went up hunting. Kind of a big letdown in a way of no coming across elk this week. It's not for a lack of trying. I kind of hunted a little further east of, like, the next draw is east of where I came into those bulls last weekend. And I went up, got parked, took off hiking, and got looking around, and I was like, oh, this has been there's been something feeding through here. Like, everything's kind of, eaten up. A lot of the vegetation is chewed on. So I was kind of excited, and I didn't, I tried to look for droppings and sign of, like, elk and stuff, and like, there was no droppings or nothing. It was just just the only evidence of something being up there was the vegetation getting chewed on. And anyway, so there's this ridge I wanted to go out on that kind of jetted out, and it was allowed me to look up look up these other draws on the same ridge. And so I went out there and set out there looking these other draws, and nothing was moving. It's kind of disheartening, but I was like, oh, I saw some elk, down there. There has to be something coming up. So I was staying positive. And then I got up, and as it's getting darker, or not darker, but later, closer to evening, when I thought maybe they'd be moving, I went over on the other side of the ridge where it was kind of a north facing slope and some timber, and set down to some cow calls, trying to get some type of activity. Nothing responded. But the irritating thing is, like, there was gunshots that, like, it sounded like they were coming down from the draw that I was doing my cow calls into. And it, what didn't really quite sound like a pistol, and it didn't sound like a shotgun either. A little too rapid for, well, I shouldn't say too rapid, but it just didn't sound like a shotgun, someone bird hunting. So, but then there was, like, dogs barking, but it wasn't like hound dogs, they weren't bellowing like a hound dog does. It was more like a dog barking. And so I kind of was, like, irritating me a little bit. And then made my way back to camp. I got camp after dark, and then I spent the next days going down the ridge, kind of heading towards where the big bull that I came across the elk in. And there's these little ravines that drop down off the ridge. Now I was waiting for, it must be like a thermal coming in or something, because I thought I was waiting on these little ridges, or one ridge particular, waiting for the wind to shift to start coming up. Because usually, like, in the early mornings, it's sucking down, and then once the sun comes up, the thermal's changing, it starts blowing up. So I thought I'd set up top and wait for it to change before I continued down the ridge, but it never never really changed, but it was kind of fun sitting there. Um, I was sitting there for a little bit, and I had 2 does and 2 fawns kind of work their way within 50 yards from me.
Mm.
And the 2 does, they kind of fed down and kept going away from me. Well, one of the fawns like turned and like started feeding up towards me, and I was just sitting by a tree, and it would feed and then like look up over at me. I just try not to make eye contact with it, just kind of just set, just no movement. I think I moved my head a little bit, but anyways, it put its head back down and went back to feeding. And there's another little fawn with it, and they just kind of turned around and wandered back down with their mamas. And so I sat there a little bit longer, and I heard something coming behind me, and all of a sudden it sounded like someone poked a hole in a tire, just as really loud like release of air.
Yeah.
And I turned around right then. There was a doe coming in with a calf with a fawn with her, and she let out like the biggest air release. Like I've heard them blow, but this thing just like it blew like all the air out of its lungs. Like it was kind of scared me because it was coming along. I heard twigs snap, and I turned around to look to see what was going on, and then all the air got released, and I was like, holy cow. So her fawn took off, she took off, and I was like, well, I'm going to sit here and let things get quiet again. And then, well, she like circled back and came within like 40 yards of me, trying to figure out what I was. And I was just sitting there like, was not moving. And she would blow at me, stomp her feet, and then she'd have enough of me. Like I wouldn't move, but she'd have enough of me and like take off running. And then a little bit while later, she'd circle back around and come within 50 yards of me, like doing the little head bob, trying to figure out what I am, kind of blowing at me. And I think she did that like 2 or 3 times, I think it was. And finally I was like, well, she probably blew everything out of the area, so I at least got to get up and start moving again. And then I thought she left, but I got up to throw my pack on and look up where she's at, and there she is again, just like sitting there through the woods watching me.
Wow.
And but I thought for sure she would have like kind of blown out of there. So I don't know that maybe she just didn't know what I was, but that curiosity was kind of interesting to watch, because I never had that before, where it circled back around and was trying to figure out what I was. What was kind of fun and interesting. Kind of scary when it first happened, because there was something coming down, from my backside, and then she let out like the air, like it was quite like the blow.
That's crazy.
And so I just started working these little draws, sitting and listening at the heads of them. I probably should have dropped down into one of them, but like I just wasn't seeing any sign, like no tracks, no droppings, or elk droppings. I didn't see any droppings really at that. And then I, moseying along, and came across another doe. She was just sitting there eating. She let me walk on past behind her. I put a tree between me and her and just stood there just to see what she would do. And she stood there and outweighted me. I was like, oh, I gotta keep moving. But she never ran off or really like did anything to let me know she was there. And I was trying to make my way to this other ridge that dropped down. It dropped down, then it like plateaued, and then it dropped down again. But it would give me another look into these other draws, and kind of into the draw that I saw the elk a couple weeks or last weekend. So I got into there, and I didn't hear anything. I sat there for a little bit. I probably should have sat there a lot longer, at least till dark, just to see if something was moving. But like I kind of glassed everything I could, looked in the timber the best I could. Nothing was there. Didn't see any movement. And then I was gonna drop down and and, get down to the bottom and see what was in there. But it was the best way out of there was to kind of hike up to where I was the night before, because it's a gradual climb out, but it would have been a long hike, because it's coming back up where I was dropping it, or was dropping out of. It was steep country again. So I was like, there gotta be something down in there. But
Yeah.
I didn't realize it till I was talking to you before this, that like there's a road on the other ridge that I could have been looking down on that stuff the whole time.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Well, it kind of comes together for me too now, because you're kind of talking about it, but when you
yeah,
said it, you're like, oh man, I don't know, but now I'm with you.
because I look, I well, at least to look like it. There's this big old, a big old scar on the side. I knew it was a road. I seen four-wheelers and stuff on it, and it looked like it could look right down into the draws. So I need to probably run up there after the season and check that out. And I want to do that and try to look for those deer. But so anyways, um but before I dropped in there, I had another deer experience. I heard some crack, and I was like, oh, here comes an elk. So I put an arrow in the old bow and sat there waiting and looking in the direction the noise came from. And again, here's a couple does and a couple fawns working
Wow.
their way across the top. And I was like, oh, dang it. And then I tried to go on the other side and do a big old loop too over on the south facing slope, and dropped down in and found this little bench, and I got looking to the other side, and the whole other side of this one ridge was just sheep covered. Like it was, I'm sure I've seen them, but like it was a lot of sheep from like the bottom of this hillside clear up to the top.
Oh, wow.
And like they were a ways away, and I could hear them too, I think, unless there are some still on my side. But so I was on this little bench, and I did a stupid thing and kind of started walking out in the open, out of the tree line. There's this big meadow that I was walking in, and I looked up in front of me, and these little, I think it was just a couple does, but they just like bound away in front of me, and I was like, oh man, I should have stayed in the trees. So I tucked back up in the trees and made my way down there. And then at the end of this bench, there was another ravine that headed down. So I'm just going to sit here and do some cow calls. And so I get set up and start doing a cow call, and I hear a tree snap or a twig snap. I was like, ooh, I got something. So I put an arrow. I should have probably needed before I set up do cow calls. Sometimes I do, but notch an old arrow in the old bow just so that way I'm ready. So I can hurry up and notch an arrow in the bow. I'm just doing the little cow calls, holding, putting time in between them. And then I hear something behind me. And so I turn up again and look behind me, and there's this doe coming into me. She's within 30 yards of me. And up behind her is a little, I think it was this year's fawn and last year's fawn, a little, because it was the only reason I think it was last year's fawn, because it was a little Forgenhorn. Like it was a tiny little thing. It didn't have a big body on it. But so she comes in almost like, almost on top of me. And then I turn around and look at her, and she looks at me, and she kind of does a circle around. As she's circling around, I do another cow call. I think I'm doing a cow call, but so she then, and then I saw her, she takes off kind of going away from me, and I hit the cow call again, and she whirls around and like faces me again. It's like, I'm trying to figure out what the heck is making this noise. Like, you do not make sense. And, so she studied me for a few seconds, and her two little kids, I guess, circled on down around me, went down to the bench I just come up from. Then she had enough of me and circled down kind of to my left in front of me. And about this time I'm catching movement in front of me, and all I can see is and I know where those 3 deer are, and there's something new in front of me, and I can see like a brown fur. Like, ooh, maybe that's an elk coming in. But then I catch movement a little bit more to my right, and I can see like a little doe, and I think this other little brown spot was a doe. So I continued cow calling for a few more minutes, and finally they had enough, and I can notice these other two little fawns just come barreling down from my right a little further up. They all meet up together and then take off down the down the down the down the what do you call it? The drainage.
Okay.
So I was like, well, I guess I wore this area out. And then I moved over to a whole nother completely different area, not quite to where we were that Sunday. Oh, excuse me, that we hunted together. Where we came across that circle of rocks. Not quite. I was down that road, but I didn't quite get to that spot. And I kind of did a little circle down in this area. It was like a big old field or flatter spot. Didn't come across any sign. Did some cow calls. Didn't have anything happen. And so that was the extent of my hunting weekend. I had activity. I had a good time. And it was interesting because I'd mentioned that there was all the foliage was being eaten. And but I think it was all from those sheep. They were all on that side because it was all on the top of the ridge, barely over the side, down the side a little bit. But the other interesting thing is the sheep didn't have that much droppings. For the amount of sheep that I saw on the other side of the hill, it was a big herd or a big flock, I guess, sheep. I don't know, whatever you call them. But there wasn't all that much like sign of that it was actually sheep. Sometimes I go into an area and it's like, oh, this is a bunch of sheep droppings, but the sheep must have been constipated.
All of them, the whole
All of
mountainside
them.
full of
Yeah,
them.
Because I doubt there's someone over there picking up after them.
You're probably right.
Well, that was when I was doing that. My calling, I let it call out, and all. I thought I was listening real careful. I was like, oh, there's a bugle, and I thought, all right. I get listening again, and then because it didn't sound quite like a bugle, like it was kind of not ramping up like a bugle, but it was like something screaming. But then it just turned out to be a sheep doing its little thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Like it was doing the little bass, but like it had like a yell to it, like it was almost like it was yelling at you.
Yeah.
But
saying, hey. Something like that.
Yeah, something about what it was. Oh, but yeah, so it was covered a lot of ground. I didn't see any sign, which was kind of disheartening. I thought for sure that finger ridge I dropped out onto would have something. I think I came across a dry wallow, I think is what people call them. Like it was a scrape on the ground, but like they hadn't pissed in it or nothing. It was just dirt kind of dug up, and that was on top of there. But there was nothing, not hardly any sign. There was an old rub from like probably last year.
I'll get into it in a second, but speaking of a dry wallow, I think I came across one too. I kind of forgot all about it until you said that, but it was like, I don't know, like a 5x5 area, and it was all dug up, and the only kind of tracks I saw in it were elk tracks.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, maybe it's like a bed or something. Maybe they're kicking up dirt or something, trying to make a comfortable bed, but I don't know. Maybe it's a dry wallow.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure, but
because I think like sometimes they'll tear it up like that, and then they'll pee in it and roll over all in it and get all smelly and stuff. But like there was nothing to really give a sign that there was anything working it.
Yeah, I couldn't tell of any like pee or anything inside that.
Cause that's
that
like, there was the spot like that last weekend when I got down on that little finger ridge. It was a kind of a dry wallow, but like there was pea spots in it and it
Hmm,
stunk too, like where this one didn't even stink, but
hmm, that's interesting.
yeah. Yeah. So that was kind of, like I said, that was my experience of the hunt this weekend. Didn't see any elk, had my fun times with the deer, but
Yeah. That's cool. That's kind of weird though, because I mean, you're seeing all those elk, the weekend before and even the weekend before that.
right,
It's kind of weird that it dried up the way it did, but I guess that's kind of what elk do, right? I mean, they just go where they want to go. They're going to be where they are,
right.
and sometimes they're not where you want them to be.
Exactly.
Says, what is that? Says Fuchsius, says whatever, or I don't know. Sounded like something a wise man would say, right?
Well, you're saying it, so
Yeah, there you go.
yeah. But like my takeaway from the week is I got excited about seeing all the grass being chumped on, munched on, and stuff, but it just turned out to be sheep, I believe.
Yeah. Well, that happens. Is there anything you wish you would have done different?
Um, the only thing I think is probably just blew out of that area, went to someplace completely different. Like picked up on. I didn't like looking at those ridges during the evening. I should have seen something moving, and being I didn't see anything move, I probably should have just left that whole area, went someplace new. But I didn't think, I was like, oh no. I think that is my takeaway, because I think I'm trying to learn how to pick up sign quickly in an area. And then if there is sign, if there isn't sign, and deciding if I need to stay or need to leave, like instead of like spending a whole day in there not coming across anything, like, oh well, I haven't seen anything fresh. Let's bounce out of here.
Right. That makes sense.
But then again, elk are elk, and they could be in there within 10 minutes of you leaving. So, it's a learning process.
It gets overwhelming
Right.
for sure.
Because I think I err on the side of like that thought too, more than I probably should. It's like, oh well, if I just sat here long enough, one will come in front of me, which is true. I sat there 365 days. I'm sure at least one of those days an elk will pass by me. But
Yeah. That's kind of I was kind of thinking about that too, just going to a spot that you kind of feel or know that there's elk that go through there at some point, just picking your spot and just hitting it over and over. And hard
right,
thing is though is I mean we take breaks and stuff, but I've never really hunted in the situation of literally just staying in one spot all day long.
right,
Usually like, well, nothing's here, let's go check out this ridge or something, and hike over there real quick, which is fun too, because I mean, you get to kind of see different country, get a feel of the land, learn the land a little different. I don't know. I kind of like doing that too, just always moving.
right. Well, there is a guy that hunted this water hole, this little pond, and he would just set on it. Like he had a tree stand. He had two tree stands. One was on this pond, and this other one was on this clearing. But he would set the trees. He would just set in that tree stand every day over the pond, and he'd be successful every year, or pretty close to every year. He'd get a bull tag and a cow tag. And the last year I hunted that area that this guy was in, he got his cow and he got, I think it was just a spike, but he filled both tags in one day.
One day, really.
Yeah, like he just sat there, like I guess I can't remember which came in first, the cow or the spike, but I think it was one of those. He shot the spike, or whichever one came in first, getting ready to get down out of the tree, and like the other one walked in behind it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I'd just like to get one a day or one in a day.
Right.
I can't imagine getting two.
Right.
God, that'd be exhausting.
But the where he was, he could just drive a 4-wheeler down to it and drag it up to the truck.
That makes it a lot easier, huh?
It does.
For sure. Well, do you want me to get into mine?
Yeah. So Eric, tell us about your opening weekend of elk hunting in Colorado.
Yeah. So this weekend was my opener, and I started off last Thursday actually. And with the scheduling and everything, I had the time off of work and everything, but trying to get everything ready and just everything going on, I didn't get to take off till Thursday morning. And even at that even came at a challenge. It kind of slept through my alarm, if you will. Wife tapped me, it was like, hey, weren't you supposed to wake up early? I'm like, yeah, holy crap. Hurried up, got everything ready. And I mean, it was still like 4:30 or something like that. And got everything ready and was driving out of the house here by, I don't know, 5 o'clock or something, or a little before 5, I think. Got up to where I'm hunting around 7:30, and it was raining that day. And so I decided to set up camp before I took off, mostly just to kind of keep my stuff dry. And so I hurried up and tried to set it up as fast as I could, and got everything out, got all ready and ready to go, and started on my hunt. And it was about, I think it was a little before 8 o'clock, like 8:45 or something, give or take. And start walking out, and I was on this plateau trying to, I, I thought I was just going to kind of hunt the plateau, hunt the flat. And it wasn't quite as big as I thought. Like I was kind of exploring it because I've never been there before. So I was just exploring it, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and hiked back in there and checking things out. Everything was pretty quiet. I wasn't really seeing much on top, wasn't seeing much sign either. And maybe a little bit of droppings, but they looked pretty old. And I just happened to, one of the first places that I happened to kind of peek over the edge was over this bench. And I saw an elk right away, saw a cow elk right away. I got a little excited, took video of it. And, right away, there was two parts of my brain that was like going off. I was like, do I make a play on this cow right now? Do I try to make a play, or do I just watch it? Because I mean, I'm already seeing a cow elk, like maybe there's a bull right behind it, like I'll just be a little patient. Right.
Yeah.
I got an either sex archery tag, over the counter archery tag. So I was like, I mean, I could take it if I want to, but I'm kind of excited here. Like opening morning, I'm already into the elk. So I'm like, man, if there's a bull that pops out, I'll see if I can make a play on that. And I was kind of in a vulnerable spot because I was up on the high side in the morning, but to crest over at all, I mean, they would have spotted me. And I just kind of hid myself behind some bushes. It seemed like the wind wasn't really blowing. A little story about that, we got that wind checker stuff.
Yeah.
I couldn't find mine. So I'm just trying to play the wind with my senses, if you will, and so that cow was maybe like 50 yards away or something. I mean, it wasn't that far away, and I could have made a play on that. But yeah, I mean, I would have had to been up on top. I would have felt more comfortable kind of dropping down into the bench and trying to make a play on him, which I actually ended up doing. I saw, so right after that, after I filmed the first cow, I turned off the phone, putting it in my pocket, and literally about that time, another cow and two calves come hopping out into the open. I'm like, oh, this is crazy, you know? So I just, stood real still. And like I said, I was thinking, I was like, oh, maybe there'll be a bull, popping out too. So
Right.
I was all excited and didn't quite know what to do. Didn't know if I should make a play in some sort of way or just sit there, you know? And like I said, I felt vulnerable to move. So I just kind of stood there. I did kind of see, I don't know if I heard an actual bugle or if it was somebody bugling, but you know, by this time it was maybe around 8:30 or so. And I heard like a location bugle, and those cows, I could hear them just taking off. And I don't think they winded me. I don't even, they might have kind of had a sense that something was up top,
Yeah.
but I don't think they winded me because the wind was real calm. It was raining. Um, I'm not 100% sure about that. They made a few cow calls themselves, and then I heard that location bugle, and it was like they just kind of hopped through the woods and down into the thick stuff. And so I waited for probably like a half hour, kind of waiting to see if something would pop out. I didn't ever see nothing pop out. I decided to dive down in there on that bench and kind of check things out. I watched, or I kind of followed the trail where it seemed like they went. I saw a lot of tracks and fresh movement right there. Plus, I mean, I saw them, so I knew that they were right in that area. Found a wallow down there, an actual wet wallow, if you will. And I kind of stood on that wallow for a while, kind of thinking, I was like, well, maybe if I get lucky, you know, there'll be a bull that walks through here. So I stood there probably for 2 or 3 hours in that area. Moved a couple times because he's sitting there going, well, if the bull comes down this way, he might spot me here. So I'd move to a different spot, you know. Anyway, at the end of the day, nothing ever popped out. Watched watched some squirrels throw pine cones down on the ground, you know, and
Yeah.
um watched them throw a bunch on the ground, then climb down the tree, and then watched them go carry it off to their stash. It was kind of cool watching that whole deal. Anyway, yeah, uh so that happened. What was that? Thursday. Thursday was it? It must have been Thursday evening. Or I got out of there, didn't see much the rest of the day. Got out of there and went back to camp, grabbed some lunch, and then I went right back out on the plateau and jumped a couple does. I spotted a doe from quite a ways away, maybe 100 yards or so away. And honestly, because I was so excited, or I was hoping to see elk. Whenever I first looked, I'm like, oh, elk, you know, and
Yeah.
uh I was like, oh, that's pretty small to be an elk though, you know. So, and I could see the mule deer's tail like kind of wiggling. I'm like, oh, that's a mule deer. But then I was like, out of curiosity, I couldn't see her head. And at the time I didn't know it was a her, but I was like, oh, it might be a small buck or something. So I kind of wanted to check it out. So creeping along, and I was so focused on her, I didn't see this other doe that was off to the left of her. But she spotted me and gave me a hiss.
Huh.
Got the other doe's attention. The other doe started looking around, trying to figure out what's going on, kind of hid behind this brush and this log, or this tree, and kind of poked her head out and looked at me for, it felt like forever, but it was probably a couple minutes is all, but it felt like forever. Anyways, finally she decided to give me a little blow and take off too. And that was that. And Didn't really see nothing else. I thought I heard a couple cows go off, but I never did see them. Wasn't quite sure if it was. I didn't quite know 100% for sure. Um, Not a whole lot going there. Did a lot of walking though. Um, I logged Thursday and Friday. I logged about 11 miles or so, give or take. And then this is where it kind of gets a little interesting. Friday morning, I went out for a hunt Friday morning. Went out to that same spot to try to find the deer or the elk. Sorry, where I saw him the day before. Went straight back out there, and nothing was really happening. And it was, I believe it was 8 o'clock on the dot. Heard another like a location bugle again, because I only heard, I mean, it could go either way. I only heard one. So it could have been an actual bull or it could have been somebody doing it. I'm not 100% sure. I heard that, got up, and I was like, well, I'll go investigate. Walked over to this little point where this rock was and just sat there for a while and was trying to glass down. And about, I don't know, I was there for a while. I kind of just stood up there for a while trying to figure out what I wanted to do for sure. Was kind of really checking out that bench, and I'll explain that later. But I was trying to figure out how and where I wanted to go to walk that bench and kind of walk through the bench and investigate it, see if I could, see anything down there in the thicker draw there. And about that time, this bear just comes popping up out of nowhere. And he's about 80, 90, 100 yards away or whatever. I'm not 100% sure how far away he was, but he was down there ways. I don't think he ever saw me or heard me. He might have smelt me, but I don't think he ever saw me.
Huh.
And
little black bear?
Little black bear, yeah. And it's pretty cool. I got video of it. Walked out from the brush into the opening, walked up to this tree, kind of gave it like a bear hug, no pun intended, but gave it a bear hug and like scratched the pine tree and then turned around and scratched his back and then got back on all fours again and then kind of walked off into the brush. Well, I got all excited. I was filming, I was like, oh, cool. Saw me a bear. And then I was there for a minute or two. The bear takes off, goes through that clearing, and then disappears the other way. So it went to the right of me, disappeared for like a minute or so, and then popped up again and went to the left of me. So kind of the funny story behind that is I carry a pistol with me and I carry bear spray too. Usually my bear spray is in my bag though. Kind of doesn't make sense, but with my pistol, I guess I don't really worry about it as much. Right. So my bear spray is in my bag and I carry a pistol with me. Well, that night at camp, I had my pistol in my tent or off of my bag in my tent. And I see that bear and I'm like, well, good thing I got my old pistol. And I look down at my bag. I'm like, my pistol's not there.
Oh.
I'm like, oh man. I was like, oh, I left it in my tent. I'm so stupid. And yeah, so anyway, so I was like, well, maybe I'll just take out that bear spray and put it on the side of my pack just in case,
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was pretty much that. I had to go back to town, do football game. I also brought my son back up Saturday evening. So I took off Friday night, broke down camp, took off Friday night, went back to town. Woke up Saturday, did the football game, and then grabbed him. And then we went back up there Saturday evening, did an evening hunt. The evening hunt, now I made a mistake, and there's a reason why, but I feel like such a bonehead for doing this. I thought we heard some cows chirping,
Okay.
and just a couple of them. But after it was done, it sounded like a chuckle from like a bull, like a
Uh-huh.
ooh, 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 like that. And me and Carter, I said, well, let's sit down. We'll sit down in front of this bush. We were in like this meadow, and I I was thinking, I was like, well, if anything pops out, it'll probably come off to the right of us, and we'll be over here. We weren't really covered, but we kind of were. Like, I just kind of felt like we wouldn't really get spotted. But directly in front of us, across from the meadow, is where we heard the cow and the bull. I think a bull. I mean, all it was a chuckle, no more. It was very like just very faint. Never did see anything. It was starting to get dark on us, and we decided to bail. And I told Carter, I was like, ah, man, I made a mistake. We should have actually sat behind this bush,
Uh,
instead of in front of it. And so, and then he's giving me crap for, I got to watch what I say to the guy, because he'll use it against me. God, Dad, that was really stupid of you. So anyway, so kind of blew that up or whatever. And that was that. Woke up the next morning. We actually went out to the same area, but we did like a 7-mile hike, a lot of walking. Now, the one thing is there's big, deep canyons and everything, but we were kind of on top on the plateau. So
yeah.
we just did a lot of walking, just trying to find some good signs, see if we could find fresh sign. Long story short, we didn't really see a lot of good sign. It was all pretty old or
Okay.
just non-existent at all. And so we did that, and then we did a little bit of hunting. What was this? This would have been Saturday or Sunday night. We did that big hike and then did a little bit of hunting Sunday night. Just didn't really come across much. But then, so Monday morning was pretty fun. We go out to that same lookout where I saw the bear.
Okay.
Now, we took off about daybreak, and we walk out there, and I told Carter, I said, I want to set on this rock. There's these on this plateau at the edge. There's these big like rocks that you can just kind of set on and look over. And I was like, I want to set on this rock, but I want to go check out where I saw the elk last time. I want to go. I want to go check out where I saw the elk the other day and see if there's anything over there again. So we go over there, and there was nothing. We go back to the rock, and we sit there, and I'm just glassing. I think I hear a little something on my left side. I'm like, I glass over, and it's real thick in here. So you're kind of lucky if you see anything, right?
Right.
But I look off to my left, and I don't see nothing. I hear something kind of back in the forest and to the right, and I try to look and don't see nothing. I even made the comment to Carter. I said, man, it's funny, you hear like a twig snap or something. You just think it's like the biggest bull in the world. Like your head just plays tricks with you, and I'm like, it's probably just a chipmunk out there doing something, or a squirrel just dropping pine cones or something. And we probably sat there for 2 or 3 hours or so again, kind of sat there a while. And I told Carter, I said, you know what? I said, let's go ahead and walk down on this bench. And this is right where I saw the bear, right?
Yeah.
So I said, let's go ahead and just walk down here on the bench, and then we'll walk up out of here through the bench, and then we'll go back to camp and pack up and take off. So we go down there, and I go down to the tree where the bear was, and I took some pictures of the claw marks that the bear left.
Yeah.
From whenever I watched it scratch its back and give it
Getting
a
the
bear
bare
hug.
necessities.
Yeah, exactly. The bare necessities, exactly. I walk up maybe 70, we're on the bench. I walk up maybe 75 to 100 yards and I hear this, hey, or whatever, I can't remember exactly, but it was another hunter and he grabs my attention. Hey, and I said, hey, I'm walking up this way. And he's kind of like waving his arms to it. I'm like, I don't know what he's trying to tell me. So I walk up to him and he's like, hey, I just shot a bear at daybreak. And I was like, no way. And he's like, yeah. He's like, the bear was 5 yards away from me. I was like, no way. Get to talking to him. And I'm like, dude, I think this is the same bear I saw Friday night. And I'm pretty sure it was. I mean, it's hard to tell because I just saw him with my, I
Right.
couldn't tell you, but it was a solid brown bear. And what he got was a brown bear. Anyways, got to talking to this guy and he said that bear was kind of acting goofy and doing its thing and just walked right in front of him at 5 yards. He just pulled back, let go. He said that thing snarled a little bit, kind of did a circle and was growling. And he had his pistol too. And he said, he's like, I never pulled out my pistol so fast. He's like, it's the fastest I've ever drew a gun ever. And he said, I was just pointing at it, shaking a little bit, because he was nervous, 5 yards away from this thing. And he had a bear tag. That's the other part of that to make, to clarify, he did have a bear tag. But yeah, so he, that bear took off or whatever, and he's like, I heard it crash down that way. Well, so I think I barely missed like the actual activity, like I think I barely missed that bear running across. If we would have sat on that rock instead of going to the other side, I probably would have saw that bear run in front of us and go crash over on the left side. And I think that's what I was hearing. I think I was hearing the hunter on the right side moving around or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
And then I think I heard the bear basically crashing over here on the left side and perishing.
Yeah.
But I could never see it, either one of them, So anyways, it was pretty cool. I got to talking to him and he was waiting it out. He's like, oh yeah, I've been waiting here for a couple hours or whatever, waiting. He was waiting for his buddy, but he was also kind of waiting to make sure that the bear passed away. And so I was like, so I sat there and talked to him for a while and I was like, they went ahead and his friend got there and talked to him for a little bit. And then they went ahead and started following the blood trail. And so I was like, Carter, this plateau, this bench is blowing out now,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's nothing through here. So I was like, let's just go back to the top. And so we climbed our way up to the top of the plateau. And I walked back over to that rock and I looked over and I saw him dragging the bear down. I was like, oh, cool. They got it, and so we went back to camp and I got camp all packed up so we could get back because I had to go to work today, and went down there to his camp and they had it strung up and doing the thing. So showed my boy that, and
that's cool.
He thought it was cool. It was a cool experience for him, and great couple of guys, really, really cool guys that I met and kept in touch with them. I sent them the pictures and the video that I had of the bear and stuff.
Cool.
I was like, man, you might as well have it. It's all part of the story.
Yeah.
So, but I guess they were hunting that same draw, that same bench all weekend, but we never passed. Well, most of the time I was up on top, but we never passed each other. It was kind of comical because I was hunting the same area. Well, I only hunted it a couple days, but they were up there and around the same time as I was. So, but so that it was a little exciting for that, obviously didn't get nothing. That would be the best story of them all, but yeah, it was exciting though. Like it just kind of made the whole hunt. I was so excited for that guy, even though it wasn't me getting the bear, getting an
Right.
elk. I was really excited for him, it was pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
So,
Huh.
so yeah, it was neat experience. And I, man, last year, me and you saw that bear, and then I saw that bear Friday.
Yeah.
Um, I was really like, man, I really need to start getting a bear tag. But I feel like the second that I get a tag, though, I probably won't see one.
Right.
Maybe I should, maybe I should get one for that reason.
Oh, for sure.
I'm those black bears. I mean, most of the time they'll run away from you before, like
Yeah.
the experiences that we've had with black bears. I mean, there's only, well, two up close and personal. I've seen them in the past, but never like that kind of. No, it's usually like from the vehicle. It's like, oh, there's a black bear over there
Right.
across the canyon.
Right.
But the experiences that we've had, though, I mean, they've been pretty skittish themselves. So it kind of, I'm not really fearful of bears, but you just never, I mean, they are wild animals. So if they want to decide to turn on you.
Right. Exactly. Wild
So,
animals with big teeth and big claws.
yeah. Oh yeah, man, that bear really was not much taller than me. Like really, I mean, it was a good sized bear, but it wasn't like the biggest bear in the world. But the claws on that thing was amazing. And then like the pictures that I got of the tree and the
Yeah.
claw marks that it left, I was thinking, I was like, I couldn't do that with my fingers, like
Right.
the strength that those things have is just, it's it's crazy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I did. So my bear story from the weekend is I saw bear marks, claw marks in a tree.
mm,
I wish I should have took pictures now that you had this story, but like I put my hand like up with the claw marks, and like my span couldn't like span the width of the claw marks on it. Like I really had to stretch to get it to fit. And I was like, holy cow, like that's quite the paw.
you know what? Remember last year when we were up in that area that we thought we heard that one bugle?
Yeah.
But remember walking up there and we started seeing all those marks on the tree and we're like, what is that?
Yeah.
I think that was bear. Could be
Could have
wrong,
been.
but because the reason I say that is because where that guy shot the bear,
Yeah.
there was some aspen trees that
Uh-huh.
had those same kind of marks. If I
Huh.
remember right, I can't quite remember what those marks that we saw looked like, but I feel like they look kind of similar.
Right.
So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I don't know. It was kind of the exciting part of the weekend though, is like kind of finishing that story with that bear, like kind of having that whole bear story kind of wrap around and have an ending of
Yeah.
a fellow hunter harvesting it. It was just kind of a cool experience to see the whole story kind of play itself out. So
Right. Yeah, it is. Like you don't get to yeah, just to have someone have a success story and be around it.
yeah, exactly. But so I really think there was a couple variables because I saw those elk, and who knows, maybe I blew those elk out. I'm not 100% sure. I don't think I did. But with seeing that bear, and then there was a lot of people that came up and in that area, and I don't think a lot of them were there to bow hunt. I think a lot of them were just there to get away for the weekend because of Labor Day.
Right.
And so there was a handful of or bow hunters too, but I seen a lot of people and I'm like, they do not look like they're out hunting. They look like they're out for a joyride or something, So I think it was a mixture of a lot of things, but I think that bear might have blown that area out for the elk. I really kind of do think that the elk were like, a bear's in here. We're out, Um,
Right.
especially, I mean, that bear kind of stayed in that area that whole time, obviously. So,
Right. Which
Um,
is, I think you brought it up, seeing bears before, but I just got thinking as you said, it's kind of funny how like, like I've not been hunting for years, but I've only had a handful of experience, and I kind of go years in between a bear experience, but yet like last year and this year, like you more or less had bear experience 2 years in a row.
yeah, I know it's crazy. I kind of curious if it's gonna be like a tradition. I don't know. I'm really thinking about getting a tag though, so I'm pretty sure that I won't see any more bear after I start getting tags for them. But
Right.
I I don't know. It's cool though. It's cool to see them.
Yeah, it's fun. Like we said it before, like it's just one of the, we want to be successful in filling our tags, but at the same time, like having these experience out in the woods is, you ain't having it on your couch, like,
Exactly.
and not everyone say they have had that experience. And I don't know, like you're just enjoying it. Like you don't see that when you're in town.
Yeah. I was kind of trying to explain that same thing. Me and my son stopped and took a break on the day before Sunday. Anyway, we took a break and we were looking out over the edge, and we could see like clear across to the other canyon. Just a beautiful scene. And I was like, Carter, you know, other people in your class, like there's only a handful of them that will ever see a sight like this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to realize how lucky you are, man. I was like, you got a dad that's gonna take you out here and show you this stuff. So
Right. Yeah. True.
I don't know if he'll take maybe 20 years from now he'll look back on it and be like, oh, that was special. But
Right.
you know,
That's not to get a little sentimental, but I feel like, like that's creating those memories. Like, you're going through this work to create them, but they won't be realized until, like you said, 20 years from now, when like he's wherever he's sitting in an office job, or, having a bad day at work, or even just a bad day in general, and being like, I appreciate dad taking me out like he did, like you won't know that for years to come.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, man. That's just what it's about is,
Right.
sharing those moments with them and showing them the way. And I don't know. I mean, to kind of, I guess, not really get sentimental, but like the ambition of me doing all this is a lot of that, to be honest with you, is to have these experiences and have it where he can live through my stories, and
Right.
and then him create his own stories. But there's hopefully this platform where he can hear, kind of go back and see a documented element of stories of me and you, I guess. But I mean, it's one of my ambitions though, is to have that for him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, that's sentimental. That's like deep stuff, but I mean,
Correct.
it's important, it's important to
Right.
me to leave some kind of legacy for him to whenever he's in his 30s, he can look back on this and kind of understand where my mind is now, and what I'm, because at 9, he's, wondering what Minecraft is next release is or whatever.
Right.
Like that's all he can really think about. But I don't know, man. He's turning that corner where he's more engaged with stuff. He doesn't really know what he's doing, and I don't know. I mean, sometimes maybe he's more right than I am, but he's like, Dad, I think right now you should do a couple cow calls. Like, so he's getting more engaged with what's going on. But he still has his moments of kind of, you know, all these lessons and everything just ain't quite there for him. He's too young to process.
Yeah.
But those guys, when we went over to their camp and they're processing the bear, one of the guys was like, hey, that's pretty special that your dad's taking you out here. And
Huh.
and doing this, and kind of gave him the old pep talk, and I think he kind of listened to it. I really didn't plan to say that any of this on the podcast, but
Sorry, that was kind of my, I guess, direction there.
yeah. Well, no, it's good. I mean, we've talked about it, how, probably wouldn't be a bad thing to be a little more
Open.
vulnerable to,
Yeah,
or
vulnerable. Correct.
to the podcast. And I actually, I guess sometimes whenever you get to flow and like you forget that you're doing a podcast and
Right.
get a little deeper or whatever. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's just really good stuff, man. Positive vibes. And, like, yeah, I didn't get an elk. Man, I'm feeling confident though. I don't know. Schedule is such a nightmare this year, but I do have the whole month. So I'm really hoping that things pan out. And toward the end of the hunt, I got another like 5 or 6 days that I have off that I'm going to pursue pretty heavy. But I'm hoping I get some, I'm going to try to go out every weekend, but it's going to be for the next couple weekends. It's going to be like for the day. I'm not going to be able to go stay the night or anything.
Right.
Just try to get out for the day. But I mean, that's fine, just getting out there, but I'm really hoping I get something this year. And I mean, it's not lack of trying. I know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I told you, like with the Onyx thing, I like to always track my loops and stuff. It kind of helps me like study and kind of look at, why didn't I walk over here or whatever, but also just kind of that information or whatever. I like to track my steps. And I guess I'm kind of a statistics guy or whatever, but yeah, we tracked about all together, or for me, it was about 23 to 24 miles or so through the weekend. And then with my son, me and him, we did about 12 and a half all together.
Cool.
So a lot of miles. I mean, for a couple days here, a couple days there.
Right.
But yeah, really fun, man. Had a good weekend, good opening weekend. Obviously, I would have liked to get something. It's kind of hard to get online and everybody's showing pictures of their trophy bulls and
right. No, I get it. I've been feeling that too.
Yeah.
Watching other people's success and be like, well, I should be there too. but
man, I don't know. Maybe we put too much heart into it, but I know me and you both have kind of heard the same thing about bugling. Like, unless an elk is actually bugling, like, don't bugle.
Yeah.
But all these people are like, oh yeah, laid out a few bugles and got all these back and got all these bugles back. And I'm like, that's weird. Cause I thought I heard a couple, but I wasn't confident enough to say that it was an actual bull.
Right.
I don't know. Seemed pretty silent out there to me, but I mean, maybe I was just in the wrong area. So,
Yeah. Well, like I haven't heard any bugles here in Utah yet, but I think it's coming. Well, it's coming. Just don't know when it actually hits their time. Their time. Oh, well, I don't know. I think we kind of got ourselves talked into the end of another episode.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think it was a good one. You had some good stories.
Yeah.
And pretty solid podcast, man. I think we're just out there doing the thing, man, but it's fun. I'm glad that hunt season's finally here. I'm so glad that I'm doing archery. I'm so addicted to it, even though I took my bow for quite a walk this weekend.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Just, you don't even know how many times I knocked that arrow and be like, I think that was nothing. Put it all back.
Right.
But it was a lot of fun. Having a good time.
Yeah, I guess that's what kind of matters when you don't have success. I know we probably say that like every episode, but in all reality, that's like, you know, one of the great things about being able to go hunting is just being out there, whether you're successful or not. It's always a great time, always memories made, and always a story that's going to be told when you get home.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so, that's kind of the, like you said, that legacy you're leaving behind with the podcasting and stuff too, is being able to share that and to tell that story. And, you know, even though we're out there struggling, everyone else is out there struggling too, but that, you're, you're enjoying it at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. That's all that matters, man. Just enjoying it,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's unexplainable in some ways, because I can't seem to find the right words. I mean, if you just talk to some guy that didn't know nothing or never hunted a day in his life, and you're like, look, you get to go out and just hike all over the mountain and not see a thing sometimes. And every year you'll be coming back, whether you get something or not, you'll be coming back with the same kind of optimism. They would think you were crazy, but
Right.
like, I don't know, man. It's just in our DNA or whatever it is. We just keep doing it. So
Right. Right. And then I'll just go ahead and take us out of here. And, everybody, thanks for listening. Appreciate you giving your support towards us. Hopefully you guys are having just as much fun as we are with whatever you got going on in your hunt. And then we'll be back with you again in a week and telling you some more stories of what happened to us. So keep pushing through the struggles, and working hard, and don't let it get you down, because it'll all pay off one day. So with that, have a good one, guys. Take care.
See you later.